Good morning. It is good to be with all of you this morning. I know I start off saying that. Some days are a little more challenging than others to get here, to feel well. But we're here this morning. Those who are able to attend with us here, we're certainly grateful for that. We appreciate everyone's attendance. Those who are visiting or maybe visiting with us, we're excited that you decided to be with us today. It means a lot to us. It's an encouragement to the brethren who worship here each and every Sunday as God gives us time. We also recognize there's a lot more who are going to be online today for illness reasons mostly, but we want to welcome those who are with us online and those who are visiting with us. You are a welcome guest, and we are glad that you've decided to be with us. We're going to be in Genesis chapter 39 this morning in our study as we look at the life of Joseph. We've been following him. We've been watching Joseph as a young man, 17 years old, given a coat of many colors by his father. His father shows favoritism above the other brothers. There's great envy there. Brothers throw him in a pit, sell him into slavery, sell him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. He is then moved into Egypt, and he is sold there. Genesis 37 and verse 36, the last verse of that chapter says, "Now the Midianites had sold him in Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and captain of the guard." And in 39 and verse 1, we'll skip over chapter 38, 39 verse 1 says, "Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there." And so he is now in the hands, under the control of Potiphar. He is an officer of Pharaoh. He is called the captain of the guard. And we're not going to read through chapter 38. And it's interesting because we're watching the life of Joseph, and the Lord is showing us moment by moment. Here's what's happening to Joseph. And all of a sudden in chapter 38, we turn over to Judah and Tamar. So just briefly, I want to explain to you something about chapter 38. We won't read through it. It doesn't deal with Joseph. Joseph is gone. Chapter 38, Judah and Tamar. It's a rather embarrassing chapter for Judah because he doesn't keep his word to his daughter-in-law, Tamar. He told her that he would give her his third son when he was old enough to marry her, and he did not do it. The first son she's married to dies. The second one he gives to her, as he should, to bear offspring, to keep the line going. And that son is struck dead by the Lord for his behavior. And so Judah tells Tamar, "When my third son is old enough, he shall be yours." Tamar realizes that Judah is not going to keep his word, so she hears later that he is on his way to Timnah to shear sheep. So she covers her face and wraps herself and sits in an open place that is on the way to Timnah. Judah looks at her as he crosses her path, and he sees that she is dressed like a harlot. He believes that she is a harlot because she's covered her face with a veil, and so he goes into her. He offers to give her a goat as payment. That's interesting. One goat for payment for her time, and she asks, since he doesn't have the goat, she asks for a pledge to hold on to until the goat is delivered. So he agrees with that. He gives her his signet and cord, and he gives her his staff. She conceives from this interaction, and she is going to have twins. 3 months later, Judah is told that his daughter-in-law has played the harlot and conceived by harlotry. And Judah says, "Bring her out that she may be burned." Nice guy. When she's brought out to be burned, she tells Judah, before she is burned, "By the man to whom these belong, I am with child." So she pulls out his signet, his cord, and his staff. She says, "Yes, I am with child, but the man who has done this is his stuff. Do you know who it belongs to?" And of course, Judah, then being stricken in his heart, acknowledged that they were his signet, his staff, and his cord. And he says, rightly so, "She is more righteous than I, because I did not give to her Shelah, my son." And the only reason why I bring up chapter 38 is because of Joseph, and I want you all to know that. It's because of Joseph. It's interesting how God gives us his word, the way he sets these things in order for us to see. Joseph is a slave. At the very time that he is up on the block to be sold, his older brother Judah is lying with whom he believes to be a harlot. His younger brother, Judah's younger brother Joseph, is going to be tempted with the same temptation, and he's going to respond in the opposite way. He's going to respond with a righteous response. And I think that's important for us. That's a powerful thing. I've been saying over and over again that Joseph has a reason, if anyone ever did, to say, I give up, I'm going to do what I want, I'm going to commit sin. God is not with me. I am torn apart from my family. I am in a foreign country. I'm a slave. I have no rights. I have to do everything I am told. Nothing is going right for me. He has every reason to say, I don't care anymore. There is no God. He has every reason, at least in earthly terms, to say that, and he does not. Judah, on the other side, he's free. And he's obviously a possessor of great wealth because he's on his way to Timnah to shear sheep. That's a time of wealth and income. That's worth a lot of money. And he has possession of these things. He can go where he wants, when he wants. He has wealth. He has power. He has ability to do the things that he thinks are okay. And he walks into sin. His brother Joseph is plagued by all of these difficulties, and he will not succumb to the temptation that is set before him day by day. Chapter 38 is important in the life of Joseph because Joseph is not Judah. Chapter 39 and verse 1, now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. So Joseph found favor in his sight and served him. Then he, this is Potiphar, made him overseer of his house, and all that he had he put under his authority. So it was from the time that he had made him overseer of his house, and that all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake, and the blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in the house and in the field. Thus he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he did not know what he had except for the bread which he ate. Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance. So again, as we're brought back into the life of Joseph, we see that he is sold off of the slave block to Potiphar. Joseph has had great success in Potiphar's home. It tells us the reason why, because the Lord was with him. Potiphar obviously notices everything Joseph does or has charge over is blessed greatly by God, and so he naturally puts everything into Joseph's hands. It says that Potiphar knew nothing about his own house except what he put in his mouth. He has absolutely let go of all authority. He trusts Joseph. There's a timeline here where he recognizes this young man is phenomenal. Potiphar has a lot of servants and a lot of slaves, and yet this one has risen to the top very, very quickly. And then the Bible tells us, briefly, but it tells us, Joseph was handsome in form and appearance. He's probably, I'm guessing, 19 years old at this time. That's a guess. We don't have that. But he was sold into slavery at 17. He's probably about 19, maybe 20. This is a 19-year-old stud. He is good looking from head to toe. And everything he touches turns to gold. So, Joseph sees it too. Maybe he knows. Maybe he knows in his life as he's striving to do what's right that God is blessing him in his efforts to be forthcoming, to tell the truth, to do what he's told to do it quickly. He's rewarded for that. God's involved in this, and we want to watch this in our lives as well. We always tell our children, count your blessings. You know, they complain about the smallest of things. They complain about things that they shouldn't. And we say, you know what you need to do is you need to count your blessings. Sit down and write down the things that God has done for you. And I remember as a child that my list was like 3 or 4 things long. And I didn't try very hard. You know, my parents said, write down the things that you know you are blessed by God. And so I did air, food. There's water that comes out of the sink. I don't know, But as we grow and mature, man, come on. Think about it. Think about your life. Think about the way that you're blessed, the things that you enjoy. Unfortunately, the things we enjoy and the reasons that we're blessed, we don't think about until when? Until they're taken away. My good health, my ability to walk to the refrigerator and to get whatever I want, the food that I want in the refrigerator, is no big deal until I can't walk anymore, until I need help getting to the refrigerator. Now my health is taken from me. I can't walk the way I used to, and I long for the days. And then I remember I should have been thankful when I could move about according to my own will. And Joseph, he seems to have all of this in line in his life. Everything's in its appropriate place. He's blessed by God. He's continuing to walk faithfully in the sight of God, and God is blessing him. Now the challenge here is that he is very good looking. Verse 7 of Genesis 39, and it came to pass. We should take note of that phrase when it comes up for us in the Bible. And it came to pass, because it always does, doesn't it? It always does. It came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast longing eyes on Joseph, and she said, "Lie with me." But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Look, my master does not know what is with me in the house, and he has committed all that he has to my hand. There is no one greater in this house than I, nor has he kept back anything from me but you, because you're his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" So it was, as she spoke to Joseph day by day, that he did not heed her to lie with her or be with her. But it happened about this time, when Joseph went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house was inside, that she caught him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand. He fled and he ran outside. And so it was, when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and fled outside, that she called the men of her house and spoke to them, saying, "See, he has brought into us a Hebrew," speaking of Potiphar, "he's brought into us a Hebrew to mock us. He came into me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice." Now we have to take note of what's happening here. Potiphar's wife has casting longing eyes at Joseph, and she says to him, "Lie with me." We don't know, the Bible doesn't say, but she's most likely, by everything I can gather, she is a very beautiful woman. She is, first of all, the wife of a prominent man in Egyptian society. He is a man of great power and authority. He's not going to go pick an ugly one. That's my first thought as I look at this. He's a man of power, and he wants a wife to have with him when he goes to the gatherings, to the feast, that this one's mine. That's the way men work, so I'm assuming that she is not ugly. We know, looking at Joseph, though he is young and handsome, that he comes from a family of shepherds, sojourners. They're nomadic in their nature. And the Egyptians despised the people of Joseph. We see that later when Jacob meets Pharaoh. We're going to see that the Egyptians want nothing to do with shepherds, and that's what Joseph is. And yet now he has stepped into a world where the people of Egypt enjoy this lavish living. There's wealth and there's great wisdom all around them. In Acts chapter 7 and verse 22, Stephen is speaking about the great wisdom of Egypt during the time of Moses. He says Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. So this is going on in the days of Joseph. He's come out of being a shepherd and walking around out in the field to coming into society where these people are thriving. They are intelligent. There is science involved. It is during this time in Joseph's life that they are becoming more and more advanced in art and in literature, in medicine, and engineering. They built the pyramids. They had developed agriculture and irrigation that had not been seen by the rest of the world. They were learning how to use the Nile River to water all of their crops. And this had not been done yet by anyone. And so the Egyptians are way ahead of their time. Joseph, stepping into this society, has got to be looking around and thinking, wow, this is an amazing place. Overtaken by the wealth and the lavish living. By the way, speaking of Joseph's wife, the Egyptians, these are the first people to use perfume. You think she had some? They're the first people to use eye makeup to beautify the face. She cast longing eyes at him. I practiced in the mirror to do the longing eye thing for y'all, and I decided not to do it. That's something that was wise. That's a gift that's given to women and not men, I realized. Not Danny. But women can do that. You can cast longing eyes. There's something about just the nature of the movement of the eyes and the face. Again, I'm not going to do it. But she's trying. The point is she's trying. She's doing everything she can. She's working towards this moment. She's thinking about, and we see it, she's thinking about an opportunity to get him to finally come into her and do what she wants him to do. Verse 8 now. This is important as we look at Joseph. What did Joseph do? She says, "Come lie with me," and he refused. This is a godly lesson for us to learn. This is a godly lesson to watch Joseph and make application for ourselves. Now, in the United States, we've had the Just Say No program, where we said, we're going to teach our children, that maybe started in the 80s, early 80s, just say no. That's how we're going to do this. When someone presents drugs to you or alcohol, you say no. And so that worked so well that there's no drugs in America anymore. You see, it doesn't work that way. You can't just tell people, oh, just say no. And I can't come here and say to you, just refuse. And yet, in God's Word, as we apply it to ourselves, we can look at Joseph, we can see the end of the road for his life. That when temptation was set before him, he refused. He is in a moment of time when he could give in, and he does not give in. It's not we just say no, just refuse. No, it's watch him. God's put him in front of us so that we would know how to react to these things. He is absolutely refused. He will not hear her. And it really is that simple. The idea of just say no is a beautiful idea. It works. But you have to recognize the moment and you have to say, this is it. This is what I've been warned about. These are the things I've been reading about when I go to God's Word, and I will not. Whether I'm sold into slavery or whatever comes my way, I will not disobey the Lord. He says to her after he refuses, my master is not aware of all that goes on in this house. So he knows what she knows. He doesn't even know what's going on in this house, which means he could get away with it. But Joseph says he trusts me. That's why he doesn't know what's going on in this house. He's accountable. He's responsible. He has some affection toward his master, Potiphar. He says, I can't do this. He's given me everything. He trusts me. And he's committed all that he has into my hand. What a terrible mistake that would be for me to lose all of that just for this one moment of passion. He's kept nothing back from me except, what does he say to her? And this should have pricked her heart. He's kept nothing back except you. Because, why? Because you're his wife. She knows that and she doesn't care. Joseph knows that and he does care. You are his wife. And then, please take note, how can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? Great wickedness. How often do you hear that on the news today? Anyone want to guess? How often do you hear this is a sin against God? Has anyone heard that in the last 20 years on the news? And that's the way some of these news reports should begin. Those who are watching today, this is a great wickedness. Be warned. God has told us about these things. We are in trouble. And the news won't touch it. That tells us something about our society and where we are today. No one has the courage to say it's wicked. It's just flat wicked. You're asking me to bring up points and to argue against this point and that point and whether we should do this or that and who's right or who's wrong. It's not that hard. This activity is wickedness. It is sinful. It is condemned by God. And people who live in that sin are always failures. Always. No exceptions. God is coming. We are accountable. That's what this world needs to hear, and no one has the courage to say it. One person does in Egypt. And we got to remember that. I can't do this great wickedness. That puts her in her place. You are wicked. Your husband will come home tonight believing that you're the same woman you've always been, and now I know that you are not. You need to repent and turn around. It doesn't compel her to live differently or to do anything different. It says day by day he did not heed her to lie with her. That means day by day she is pressing on him and saying, lie with me, lie with me, lie with me. He's doing two things. Number one, he's not listening because it says he didn't heed to her. He's not listening to her, and he did not get near her. He's trying to avoid her. Day by day, when he sees her, he goes the other way. If he knows that she's going to be somewhere, he makes sure he's not. We have to remove ourselves from sin. We cannot make provision for the flesh. He already knows what she wants. So day by day is important because he could be going day by day and thinking, well, Potiphar hadn't been here in a week and I don't even know where he is. I'm not even from this country. And he has made a plan. He is not going to be found with her. He's not going to be caught alone with her. Finally, for this woman, as she is casting longing eyes at him and thinking of a way to take hold of him and to have her way, this lust within her boils over. She grabs hold of him and she insists. We're told that there's no one in the house. Joseph comes into the house. He's got work to do. He came into the house to do his work. And she says, this is the moment. My husband is not here. She says, lie with me. And what did he do next? He ran. It is that easy. Please listen to this as I read it for you, thinking about Joseph. Because it says in verse 12 of Genesis 39 that she caught him. And we know he's not going to put up with that. He's going to run. She caught him. So she caught him and kissed him. With an impudent face, she said to him, I have peace offerings with me. Today I have paid my vows. So I came out to meet you, diligently to seek your face, and I have found you. I have spread my bed with tapestry, colored coverings of Egyptian linen. That's interesting. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let us take our fill of love until morning. Let us delight ourselves with love. For my husband is not at home. He is gone on a long journey. He has taken a bag of money with him and will come home on the appointed day. With her enticing speech, she caused him to yield. With her flattering lips, she seduced him. Immediately he went after her as an ox goes to the slaughter, or as a fool to the correction of stocks, till an arrow struck his liver, as a bird hastens to the snare. He did not know it would cost him his life. Proverbs 7, verse 13 through 23. Joseph has a choice to make. The simple one amongst the youths in Proverbs 7 hears the same speech with the same flattering lips and the same longing eyes. I have longed for you, I have sought you out, and here you are. God has set you before me that we may enjoy a night of love together. I've set my bed, I've perfumed my bed and myself so that we would have thorough enjoyment together. Don't worry, my husband's not home. He's taken money and he won't come back until the appointed day. No one's gonna know. The very same thing happened to Joseph. And instead of going into her and not knowing, Joseph does know because he told her, how can I sin against my master and do this great wickedness before God? And the answer is, I can't if I'm going to be a faithful servant of the Lord. And so we have Joseph again, this sterling, shining example who is conquering these temptations that we often struggle with and that face us day by day. For those of us who recognize this reality, every day there is a temptation. Often it is lust. And it is hard. We have to identify it appropriately and say this is wickedness. Now, I can, even with the statement that this is wickedness, I can go there. But that means I'm wicked because it's wickedness. What I can't do is lie to myself and lie to my family and lie to the people around me and say, it's just this thing I do. No one's going to be hurt. No one saw me. That's irrelevant. That is irrelevant. That is not how God works. If it's wickedness, do not go there and do not make provision for these things to take place, because you do not know that going into her leads to death. It's going to cost you your life. Many strong men were slain in the household of the harlot. And men of today are no exception when they go into her. Genesis 39, we read down through 14, where she said, this Egyptian or this Hebrew has come to mock us. Down in verse 15, it happened when he heard that I lifted my voice, this is Potiphar's wife, and cried out, that he left his garment with me and fled and went outside. That's the only part that is true. So she kept his garment with her until his master came home. Then she spoke to him with words like these, saying, the Hebrew servant whom you, that's interesting, brought to us, came into me to mock me. And so it happened, as I lifted my voice and cried out, that he left his garments with me and fled outside. So it was, when his master heard the words which his wife spoke to him, saying, your servant did to me after this manner, that his anger was aroused. Please notice here, this is the second time that Joseph has suffered wrong after someone has used his clothes to lie about him, what he had done, or what had become of him. Remember his brothers, they took his garment and put the blood of a kid of a goat to bring to their father and say, you know who this belongs to? Got blood all over it. Now Potiphar's wife, also holding the garment of righteousness that Joseph wore, used it as a weapon against him and makes up her own story. She calls him a Hebrew. We see that twice. She's saying, look, he's a foreigner. She's using this to build her case. This Hebrew, when she talks to Potiphar, that you brought in here, you've done this to me. You see how wickedness works? She couldn't have her way. She got no use for this young man anymore. He's obviously not going to lie with her. He's still good looking, but eye candy's not enough for her. And so she says, he is the enemy of this household. He attacked me and tried to assault me. Now he's mocking us in our home. She holds the garment and shows it to Potiphar as evidence. Verse 19 tells us that Potiphar's anger was aroused. And I try to watch this as I'm going through and taking note of the way the verses are written, the passages are written. I don't want to go further than I should. But if you read it there, it just says that Potiphar's anger was aroused. Well, can I ask a question? Who's he mad at? Naturally, we would say Joseph, because Joseph's going to be thrown in prison. Let's finish the reading. Verse 20, then Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were confined. And he was there in the prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy, and he gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever they did there, it was his doing. Sound familiar? The keeper of the prison did not look into anything that was under Joseph's authority, because the Lord was with him. And whatever he did, the Lord made it to prosper. And so we have this conclusion of chapter 39. Potiphar, we're told, and we've read it already this morning, is an officer of Pharaoh. He's the captain of the guard. The Hebrew word here for captain of the guard is he is the chief executioner. If you look at the definition of that captain of the guard, he is the chief executioner. He is a young man in his home who has just tried to attack his wife. Follow me, chief executioner. What does he do with him? Puts him into prison where Pharaoh's prisoners are kept. So this may be a nicer part of that prison. He could have put Joseph to death, but instead he puts him with the king's prisoners. It could be, and I hope you will follow me in this, it could be that Potiphar knows what kind of wife he has. And Potiphar's in a tough spot. He knows Joseph well enough to know that Joseph has never wronged him, so much so he gave him everything, except his wife. Now his wife, alone with Joseph, gives this weird story of how Joseph has attacked her contrary to his character, and she's saying, this Hebrew, and you better do something with him. Can you believe he's done this to me? Potiphar's in a bad spot. In my mind, when I watch this, he's in a bad place. What's he going to do? Accuse his wife of lying? She's still going to be his wife, and then Joseph's still going to be there. So he has to do something. He puts him in to the prison. The keeper of the prison did not look into anything under Joseph's authority. And I want us to know, as we're looking at this now, that Joseph is right where he needs to be. He's right where he needs to be. We're going to have a couple of men who are going to have some dreams in the next chapter. And Joseph is given charge over everything. We're going to see that Joseph notices their countenance. And he's going to say, why are you so sad? Well, how did he know that? He's tending to these men. They begin to love and to trust Joseph. He is a great man. Did you realize that you can be in prison and God still be with you? Did you see that? That the Lord's like, oh, prison, I can't go there. That's not the way the Lord works. We can't do that to ourselves. If we're cast into prison for doing what's right and someone's lied about us, or we've been brought into jail for the wrong reasons, that's irrelevant. God is with us. He can go anywhere He wants, and He is with Joseph. So what I want to do, with the very little time that we have left, is look at the three things that I see. Number one, God's blessings are on the faithful. God is so good to us, as I mentioned at the beginning of this lesson. No matter where we are in our life, our trust should be wholly rested in Him. Except work, right? When you're at work, that's the one place you don't have to wholly trust in God. Because work's tough and your boss is mean and all those things. Work's the one place where we can behave as we want. Sorry. Ephesians 6 and verse 5, bondservants, be obedient to those who are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling and sincerity of heart as to Christ. Not with eye service as men pleasers, but as bondservants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, with good will doing service as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that whatever good anyone does, he will receive the same from the Lord, whether he is a slave or free. Joseph being a slave, serving God, not man, and was blessed because of it. You masters, do the same things to them, giving up threatening, knowing that your own master also is in heaven, and there is no partiality with him. Please remember the great ways that you are blessed, and that there's no place to go or place that you can be in your life where God shouldn't be on the forefront of your mind and of your character. That work is, as the Bible shared with us, work is the place to show God to our fellow co-workers. Not to hide Him, but to show people who God is in our life. Joseph did that, and we need to do that as well. Number two, temptation is persistent. I've touched on this a little bit. James chapter 1 talks to us about temptation. We'll read that together. James chapter 1, beginning in verse 12. Blessed is the man who endures temptation. You see that? He's not a failure. God's not mad at him for enduring temptation. Jesus Christ was tempted. It's not sin. It's not wrong to be tempted. Blessed is the man who endures temptation. That's Joseph. For when he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those who love Him. Let no one say when he is tempted, I am tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does He Himself tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desires and enticed. Then when the desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. Do not be deceived, my beloved brethren. Temptation will keep coming. And we have got to establish ourselves on God's Word. We've got to take note of those temptations, to see them there, and then to make the move necessary to avoid, to not listen to have no part with a temptation that is calling us. Not just calling us for partial pleasure, that's true, but temptation calls us away from God. And we're either Christians or we're not. We're saints, we're soldiers, or we're not. As mighty soldiers of Jesus Christ, we must deal with these things quickly and with great finality. Deal with it. Finish it. Don't let it rise its head again. The third thing that I see in Joseph that he has done that we certainly should do is flee temptation. Run for your eternal life. Run. Usually when a man runs, it's associated with fear. You know, you think about, what'd you do? I ran. Oh, it's not very courageous. This time it is. When we're talking about sexual sin, running is the greatest and most courageous thing you can do. He tried to rebuke her, and tell her why he shouldn't do it, and she would not hear him. And so there's only one thing left to do, and that is to run. 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 11, the New Testament instruction for us. Beloved, I beg you as sojourners and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lusts which war against your soul, having your conduct honorable, watch this, among the Gentiles, that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may, by your good works, which they observe, glorify God in the day of visitation. Gentiles are going to speak evil of your good works. Can we see that anywhere in the Bible? Just read it. This wicked woman has accused him of wickedness because he did what was right. And that is very sad in her case and on her part. We won't hear from her again, but I often wonder when Joseph was placed number 2 in power if she had any concerns. None greater than Joseph except for Pharaoh, which means he's greater than Potiphar, which means he can knock on Potiphar's door and say, is your wife here? I want to get something straight. There's no mention of her. 2 Timothy 2:19, nevertheless, the solid foundation of God stands, having this seal, the Lord knows those who are His, and let everyone who names the name of Christ depart from iniquity. Run. But in a great house, there's not only vessels of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay, some for honor and some for dishonor. Therefore, if anyone cleanses himself from the latter, he will be a vessel for honor, sanctified and useful for the master, prepared for every good work. Flee also youthful lust, but pursue righteousness, faith, love, peace with those who call on the name of the Lord out of a pure conscience. Flee youthful lust. The Bible says, run. Do it. Do not keep company with those who you know are engaged and involved in wickedness. Typically, we give an invitation to the congregation and certainly even those out on the live stream. We want people to know that God is calling the prodigal. God is calling those who are in sin to come to Him. He has offered salvation and redemption through the blood of His Son, Jesus Christ. I know most of us here are members of the church as it stands today. But we've looked at a tough topic this morning, and we want to obviously give that invitation to those who are wrestling with sin and temptation, who realize that I need help. I need the prayers of this congregation. That those things, those spiritual strengths are made affordable to us by God. And so if the battle is being lost and you are failing in that, those things happen and we recognize that. But there is strength provided by God through His church and by the power of God Himself. You need the brethren to pray for you, to encourage you, to understand more about your challenges so that they can help you along life's road to see you safely to heaven. Take advantage of that. We want you to come forward while together we stand and sing.